Welcome in, everybody. It is Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Your screen does not deceive you. It is me, David Wilson, fresh off a 13-day break. The TSSAA State Volleyball Tournament had us preoccupied last week. It's good to be back here on the show on my normal Wednesday with my buddy Calvin White. He's joining your screen right there from his respective home up in Clarksville. It's kind of a dreary day here in Nashville. Makes you kind of feel like winter is almost upon us. Some of us have that little fireplace tuned up. Maybe got a little coffee and some tea in the background. So we appreciate you joining us on your Wednesday afternoon on your respective media devices. Calvin, first of all, happy Wednesday. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, happy Wednesday. It's a good day to be a duck. We finally got a decent amount of rain. We were talking about it before we went live. Hopefully all of this is out of the way so we can finish up the regular season of the high school football season tomorrow, and then hopefully it stays out of our way so we can finish up the postseason.
Yeah, absolutely. The weather was a topic throughout the summer, at least. We had that long drought, that long dry spell here in the mid-state where we couldn't buy rain, and my grass was respectively as brown as I. But the weather and the rain has not been an issue the last couple of days. We've got our fair share. Makes the grass look a little good. Looking out the window, got our hedges trimmed, so that looks nice as well for anybody who drives down the street. So yeah, it's a good day. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's the last week of the high school football season. Is a busy time for high school sports in general. Obviously, we'll get into that over the next several weeks. Blaine Keller is down in Chattanooga covering the girls' TSSAA soccer championships. You got cross-country championships next week in Memphis. Calvin mentioned this week. Regular season finale starting tomorrow across the state in high school football. First round of the playoffs will be next week. So it is on a collision course. We're all got our eyes set on that first weekend in December where the Blue Cross Bowl will take place in Chattanooga down at Finley Stadium on the campus of University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. So it is full steam ahead. Also, thinking about it, Calvin, it kind of makes my head hurt already. Basketball season gets underway on November 17th for the girls and boys, respectively. Basketball practice starts next week across the state overall. So it is going to be hectic. We're saying goodbye to some sports like we did last week with volleyball and like we're doing this week with soccer, but we are welcoming in some more. So it is wild and wacky. It is hectic for your respective and your neighborly sports reporter. So prayers and thoughts are needed as we continue, as we get to November, and spooky season really on Halloween Friday is upon us. Calvin, before we get started, do you have any Halloween plans for? Obviously, this is your last day. Any parties you're going to this weekend?
No. I'll be out on Friday, covering some football. I'll be over at Henry County watching Kirkwood and Henry County play. And then, thankfully Austin Peay is not playing at home on Saturday, so hopefully I'll take my Saturday to, wrap up the final week of the high school regular season and then rest and get ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, I have a Halloween party to go to on Saturday. My friends were kind enough to remember that it's Friday and David has to recover sports on Friday night. I'll be at Friendship Christian and National Christian for their winner-take-all battle for the Middle Region Championship in Division II Single A on Friday. So they thought of me and they pushed the party back to Saturday. Me and my respective lady friend are going as Stack and Mary from Sinners. So for those of you that liked Michael B. Jordan and Haley Steinfeld in that movie, that is what we are dressing up as on Saturday night. So we're looking forward to that. Looking forward to a good show here today, though. Obviously, it is Wild and Wacky Wednesday. We thank the people down at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia for sponsoring the show. Coming up in the second hour, Michael Felder of LEARFIELD Sports will join us. It's been a hectic week and a hectic season in college football. So many coaches have been dismissed already, and we have not even got to Halloween officially into the month of November. We'll talk to Michael about obviously the big news last week that y'all got into on Monday with Wade and Mo, the firing of Brian Kelly down in Baton Rouge in Louisiana at Louisiana State University, LSU. We'll ask Michael who's next, who's on the docket for the coaching search for LSU. Obviously, we've heard some familiar names, Lane Kiffin, Marcus Freeman. They've come up with jobs at Florida. We also heard Marcus Freeman come up at Penn State. So we're interested here to Michael, his philosophy on what's next for the Tigers. Also, who's next on the coaching hot seat? It seems like there are several more names across the South in particular and the country as a whole that could get the can before the season is over. We'll get his thoughts on that. And obviously a loaded slate once again of college football this week. Obviously Vanderbilt's making the trip down to Austin to take on Texas, who could be without Arch Manning, who is in concussion protocol. East of here in Knoxville on the banks of Tennessee River, it's Josh Heupel taking on his alma mater, Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner, and John Mateer coming to town to take on Tennessee. And then obviously this weekend, College Game Day is there between Cincinnati and Utah. So we got a loaded slate that we're looking forward to talking about to Michael about. We'll talk a little baseball. Obviously, the World Series is in full swing. Calvin and Wade talked about the 18-inning affair in the City of Angels yesterday. Well, the Toronto Blue Jays evened that series last night at Chavez Ravine. We'll get into that not only at the end of the first hour, but coming up here in our top story. Then friend of the show, Heather Williams. She's our first guest on the docket this afternoon, coming up in about 15 minutes. It's the NASCAR Championship weekend. Another sport coming to the head this weekend where the National Series convene in Phoenix. The Truck Series is on Friday night. Xfinity Series is on Saturday. And obviously the Cup Series, the grand premiere and the big stage on Sunday. So looking forward to talking to Heather about all things NASCAR as they wrap their season this weekend. Calvin, it's time to get into it. We'll get into yesterday's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the Rundown.
Mentioned that the TLS Lake Girls Soccer Championships are underway this week down in Chattanooga. They were playing at the Baylor School down there in Chattanooga. These were scores from yesterday. Merrill High picked up a 5-0 win over Cascade. Collier blank Siegel 4-0. It was Station Camp beating Dyersburg in double overtime 8-3. It was Franklin shutting out previously undefeated Stewart's Creek 4-0. It was Liberty Creek blanking Greenville 2-0, and Houston picking up a 5-2 win over Summit. Last night down at Bridgestone Arena in the NHL, it was the Tampa Bay Lightning picking up a 5-2 win over the Nashville Predators. Tampa Bay scored 3 goals in the third period to beat the Predators on their home ice. And as we mentioned yesterday, down in Chavez Ravine in the City of Angels in Los Angeles, it was the Toronto Blue Jays evening the World Series at 2 games apiece. They defeat the Dodgers 6-2. They defeat Shohei Ohtani thanks to a 4-run 7th inning.
In TSSAA girls state soccer action, we've already got a couple of results from today. Baylor beat CPA 2-1. Evangelical Christian wins 4-0 over DCA. And coming up at 4 p.m., we've got Merrill Hyde in Adamsville and Station Camp versus Liberty Creek. And at 6:30, Bearden will play Franklin in college football. In Murfreesboro tonight, MTSU is hosting Jacksonville State at 6:30 on ESPN2. You can listen to our buddy Chip Walters, the voice of the Blue Raiders, on the Blue Raider Sports Network. In the NBA, the Grizzlies travel to Phoenix to play the Suns. Tip-off is at 9 p.m. on that one. And in Game 5 of the World Series tonight between the Blue Jays and the Dodgers, Game 5 at Dodger Stadium, first pitch for that one will be at 7 p.m. on Fox. Those were your scores, that was your schedule, and that concludes today's rundown.
Our top story is brought to you by the good folks down at Piggly Wiggly and Neely's Mill in Columbia. They serve daily lunch options from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. They also offer hand-cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Neely's Mill, Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Presenting you our top story, and as Calvin just mentioned, we are even at 2 games apiece in the World Series. The Toronto Blue Jays evened it up yesterday with a 6-2 win in Chavez Ravine over the Los Angeles Dodgers. The person on your screen, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., put the Jays ahead with a 2-run home run off Shohei Ohtani, and they added 4 runs in the 7th inning to even this World Series. It is now a best of 3, and this series is guaranteed to go back north of the border in Toronto. Obviously, a decisive, or I guess pivotal, decisive is not the right word, pivotal Game 5 tonight in LA. Obviously, this is 3 games in a row, Calvin. You and Wade talked about on Monday, the 18-inning marathon, it seemed. I went to bed very quickly. I went to bed in the 10th inning. 18-inning marathon on Monday where the Dodgers picked up the win thanks to Freddie Freeman won his second walk-off home run in consecutive World Series. Remember his one last year off Nestor Cortez against the Yankees. He did it again against the Blue Jays on Monday. But the Blue Jays, Calvin, they've had their backs against the wall several times this postseason. You think about they lost the first 2 games of the American League Championship Series at home against Seattle. They were down 3-2 in that series, needed to win 2 games respectively in their home ballpark just to advance the World Series. So they're used to having their backs against the wall, and it seems like when it matters most, they play their best baseball. Obviously, pitching was a topic yesterday. Obviously, Ohtani and Shane Bieber, who are the respective starters for their clubs, needed to go deep to save the bullpen that very much got taxed for their respective ball clubs the night before. Shane Bieber was absolutely phenomenal yesterday for the Blue Jays. Pitched into the 6th inning, 5 1/3 innings, only gave up 4 hits and 1 earned run, had 3 strikeouts. He outdueled Shohei Ohtani, who pitched into the 7th inning plus, was tagged for a couple runs in the 7th that some inherited runners by Anthony Bonda scored. But this was big for the Blue Jays, Calvin, and even this series to make sure it is guaranteed to go back north of the border to the Rogers Center in Canada.
Yeah, and I would imagine that, yesterday was especially hard for them. Just, it was probably hard for both teams coming off 18 innings, but coming off an 18-inning game that you lost and, trying to find a way to rebound from that, when thankfully they didn't have to go deep enough into their pitching where they had to burn Shane Bieber a little bit into that 4th game. But Wade and I have talked about this the last 2 weeks. But going into the World Series, it felt inevitable that the Dodgers were going to win it just because the way they kind of lapped the field in the first couple rounds. But we were kind of talking about how we just hoped that the Blue Jays could stay competitive. And before the game yesterday when we did the show, we were talking about, the Blue Jays have played well enough to where you feel like if they could rebound and tie it up at 2, that, going into Game 5, they, not only have a shot to be competitive, but they have a shot to win it. And Vladdy Jr.'s had a really good postseason. Obviously, you talked about the 2-run homer he had off Shohei early to put the Blue Jays up. And for, what feels like one of the few times this postseason Shohei's actually looked human. He was 0 for 3, struck out twice. The Blue Jays held the Dodgers to, I think, 6 hits. And, the Dodgers offense just wasn't really able to get anything going for the first time this postseason, it feels like. Even the games in this World Series that they've lost, they've been able to put up some runs. But the Blue Jays are playing their part, and they look like they've at least got a shot to win the whole thing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to get too thick in the weeds or deep in the weeds on this one because we will talk about this once again at the end of the first hour after we talk with our friend Heather Williams after a little NASCAR. But Vladimir Guerrero, you mentioned him with the big home run yesterday of Shohei Ohtani to give the Blue Jays the lead. How about this, Calvin? Hitting .419 in the postseason with 7 home runs. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, they gave him that monster extension earlier this season. And he has definitely been worth the price in every penny. Bo Bichette is somebody I'm keeping an eye on. Obviously, his team was without George Springer last night in their starting lineup. Obviously, he has had a ton of postseason success from the leadoff spot. So Bo Bichette, him getting healthy and getting part of that lineup. He had a big hit yesterday in the 7th inning to help extend their lead, give them a little cushion. They were able to stay away from Jeff Hoffman last night as well, building that lead. So it's a 3-game sprint now. It's 2 out of 3. Game 5 tonight. Once again, we'll get into it to close this hour. It is Trey Savage versus Blake Snell. That's rematch of your pitching matchup from Game 1. We remember that game. Toronto jumped up all over the Dodgers and took Game 1 of this series. So if you're the Blue Jays, you feel some confidence, even though you are the road team. You've had success against Blake Snell, 1, and 2. You're guaranteed the opportunity to get this thing back to Toronto, right? After Game 3, where the Dodgers win and take a 2-1 series lead. Even at that point, I don't think there's panic. It's, can we get it back to Toronto and maybe potentially win one game on our home field or two? So I know they feel really good about that. They're a really good ball club as well, with a lot of veteran experience. Got a good show on deck for you guys. Thank you for joining us on a Wild and Wacky Wednesday. Coming up after the commercial break, it is championship time for the NASCAR Cup Series and the other two national series for NASCAR. The Truck Series will crown a champion on Friday night, and the Xfinity Series on Saturday. All here, joining us to break it all down ahead of the trip to Phoenix, friend of the show, Heather Williams, is going to join us to break it all down. We look forward to being joined by her next here on Main Street Sports Today. So stick with us.
Got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need...
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
3-3.
Bee, oh, busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now
busy
ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Welcome back in to Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm David Wilson. That is Calvin White. Gearing up here to be joined in our next segment by friend of the show, Heather Williams from Johnson City, as we get ready to discuss the NASCAR Championship weekend that is taking place in Phoenix this weekend, Friday through Sunday at Phoenix Raceway. Kicks off on Friday. Green flag for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series Championship race, where 4 drivers will compete for the championship, is on Friday. Xfinity Series, 4 drivers once again competing for the championship on Saturday. And then in the main event on Sunday, NASCAR Cup Series takes to the high banks as they look to crown a NASCAR champion. Looking forward to talking to Heather about all the storylines in Phoenix this weekend. Got some star-studded names in the NASCAR Final Four. You think about guys like Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, obviously Chase Briscoe, who's new to Joe Gibbs Racing, and obviously William Byron, who won his way into the Final Four last week with a win at Martinsville. You think about the Xfinity Series, young gun Connor Zilic driving for Junior Motorsports, is going to take the step up next year and race for Trackhouse in the Cup Series. And obviously on Friday, Corey Heim is the story of the NASCAR Truck Series. He's won 11 races this season, including a win last week at the aforementioned Martinsville short track up in Virginia. He is a young gun in the Truck Series as well. So looking forward to talking to Heather about all those lines, Calvin. So Calvin, I hope you did a little homework on NASCAR. This is the last week you have to worry about it until the offseason, unless we get some free agency news or some big news out of NASCAR. So we're looking forward to Heather to jumping in. Heather should be happy this week. Her Chiefs are looking quite good the last couple weeks. Obviously, Rashee Rice coming back has been a big help for Patrick Mahomes in the crew. So we're looking forward to Heather to join us shortly as we discuss a little NASCAR. And I heard she is here now. Heather is joining us now. Heather, we appreciate you joining us on a Wednesday afternoon. Hope you're doing well.
I am sorry about the delay. The camera on my laptop doesn't want to work, so I'm here, but you can't see me.
No worries whatsoever. As we kind of mentioned before you hopped on, it is a big weekend for the NASCAR National Series. It's all three series head to Phoenix Raceway this weekend to crown a champion. Just starting off on Friday with the Craftsman Truck Series, obviously Corey Heim picked up his 11th win of the season last week at Martinsville. Obviously, he's the odds-on favorite, to say the least, going to Phoenix this weekend. Can you even just describe just the magical season that he's had? I think about just the dominant Truck Series seasons that we've had in the past. Obviously, you think about guys like Kyle Busch, Ron Hornaday, etc. Corey Heim just seems to be on a different level than the competition this year, though, Heather.
Yeah, he is proving that he is ready for more than just the Truck Series. It's not a knock on the Truck Series, but obviously it's AA baseball. You know, he is probably what it looked like when Aaron Judge was in AA baseball, right? He is a man among boys. He is the guy that is just, you know, he's just better than everybody else. And so the interesting thing about him in the Truck Series, and I'll kind of fast forward a little bit to Connor Zillage in the Xfinity Series, their series have been so dominant, and there's a chance that they might not win a championship, obviously, because in this format, that it's really the main catalyst for what is expected news either this week or next week, that the point system is going to change in NASCAR. What we have now will, I don't want to say definitely, because I don't know this with 100% certainty, but you know, somewhere in the 90% certainty, what we have now will not be coming back. So we'll either have full season points, we'll go back to the chase for the championship, or we'll do the 3-3-4 format where the final champion will be determined over 4 races instead of just one. And you can thank Connor Zillage and Corey Heim for that if it comes about, because their dominance in their particular series is and why people are kind of screaming this. And not to take anything away from Heim's season, because he broke Greg Biffle's record for wins in a series in a year, and I would say unless somebody else takes him out by his own doing, or he gets lost on his way to Phoenix, he's probably going to add to that this week. I don't see any way how he doesn't win the championship unless one of those two things happen, because the other thing this team is really good at is not beating itself. And so, yeah, it's just been incredible.
Yeah, I remember watching him even at Nashville. I know Rajah Caruth won that race here during the summer, but just the speed that 11 truck has week after week, it's so impressive. Jump into the Xfinity Series. Obviously, you mentioned another driver who's a young gun that's having a phenomenal and historic season. That's Connor Zillage, driving for Junior Motorsports, the number 88. Obviously, he's going to make the jump to Trackhouse Racing next year and compete in the Cup Series. It's a Chevy Bowtie Brigade in the Final Four for the Xfinity Series. Obviously, Connor Zillage, Carson Twaffel, Justin Allgaier, the veteran, and Jesse Love driving for Richard Childress Racing. Obviously, you kind of mentioned, Zillage has been fast all season long, no matter what course it's been on. But when you come down to the Final Four, it's any given man's race, and you don't necessarily have to even capture the checkered flag and win the race. It's just the highest finisher. So, how do you size up that Xfinity Series Final Four as they take on Phoenix on Saturday?
I think it's going to be less of a slam dunk than it probably is for Corey Heim. Zillage has been really impressive, but short tracks are not necessarily his strength. On the flip side, his teammate, Justin Allgaier, he won this race. He won this championship last year with a strong performance out at Phoenix. So he's absolutely a threat. They'll be in almost identical cars because they are teammates. So I think this one could be more interesting than the Truck Series, at least on paper, because I think either one of those two could win. The other two people in the championship got there more on consistency than on, raw speed and wins. So I think it might be a tougher road to climb for Jesse Love and for Caden Honeycutt. Not Caden Honeycutt. Jump back to the Truck Series.
You're fine.
But anyway, I think it might be a tougher road for them to climb. I think it really comes down to Zillage and Allgaier.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into the Final Four for the Cup Series on Sunday and the season's finale, let's go back to Martinsville last week. William Byron, in a win-and-in scenario, basically needed to win and capture the checker flag in order to punch his ticket to Phoenix and join, obviously, the already two locked-in Toyota teammates of Chase Briscoe and Denny Hamlin. Just kind of talk about Williams' performance, really dominant, and was able to pass Ryan Blaney, who's notoriously been, as we kind of talked throughout the season, Heather, somebody who really does well on long runs and short tracks with that Ford package that they have. Obviously, Hendrick Motorsports is widely known for being able to win, especially in that 24 car at Martinsville. So it was kind of a career-defining moment for William Byron. Although he is young, he's very talented and won a lot of races to put himself into the Final Four.
Yeah, what a performance by him and Ryan Blaney. William Byron was dominant. There's no question. What Blaney did was so impressive with his back against the wall. He darn near won that thing a third time in a row, and he started like 30th, 33rd position, something like that. So that's crazy. And the two of them battling was so much fun to watch, Ryan run down William, get in front of him, William pass him, Ryan get up there again. Like, it was almost everything you could want from a race that was dominated by one driver as much as it was. Like, Ryan kept him honest for most of the race, which made it really entertaining. It was also really entertaining until Christopher Bell got kind of caught in some bad pit luck to watch him battling for that final spot with Kyle Larson. So was it the most compelling cutoff race at Martinsville? No. It's probably hard to ever beat the ride the watermelon around the outside of Martinsville, but it was pretty good. It was pretty good, all things considered. Especially when you have one guy who leads many laps as William Byron did. There was still a lot going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I don't want to speak for the Toyota teammates of Chase Briscoe and Denny Hamlin. Obviously, they would love to have seen their teammate Christopher Bell make the Final Four as well. But I know they have to feel at least a little happiness knowing that a Ford like Ryan Blaney or Joey Logano is not in the Final Four, considering the success that Ford has had at Phoenix in that championship race the last couple years. Moving forward, obviously, we have two Toyotas and two Chevys, Hendrick Motorsports versus Joe Gibbs Racing, in the Final Four this weekend, Heather. And it's so many storylines, just particularly coming out of that group. You think about a guy like Denny Hamlin, obviously trying to capture that elusive first championship. You think about Kyle Larson trying to grab a second to kind of maybe add some validation to the first. And then you think about guys like Chase Briscoe and William Byron trying to capture their first title, respectively. Chase doing it in his first year at Joe Gibbs Racing. Of all that, Heather, of all that kind of word salad that I just threw at you, I guess which storyline that sticks out to you the most?
It's a tasty word salad, though. First of all, as far as the Fords go, I think everybody is relieved that there's no Penske Ford in the Final Four, but it's still pick your poison, right? Because all four of the drivers that are in the championship four have been very successful at Phoenix. They consider Phoenix either their favorite track or one of their best tracks. So, okay, you got rid of one threat, but there are still three other threats looking you straight in the eye. On my podcast this week with my co-host Chris Carrier, who's the crew chief for Parker Clearman, we played a little game where I just basically said, Denny Hamlin can win the championship but Denny Hamlin can lose the championship because, and we did it for all 4 drivers. And you can make a compelling argument for all 4 drivers why they can win the championship and why they can't win the championship. And it is as equally divided or weighted as a championship 4 as a group has been in quite some time. I think the top 3, what I consider to be the top 3, are very close in their ability to win it. And this is just my opinion. And I consider the 4th favorite in my mind to be Kyle Larson. And my goodness, he's the one guy that's actually done this before, but he's running the weakest of the 3 momentum wise, because he didn't win in any of the playoff rounds, last couple rounds. So, but are you going to bet against Kyle Larson? It's really just a fascinating Final 4. Me personally, I like the Toyotas. I think both Denny and Chase are very good there. And I think the thing about Chase Briscoe, I think a lot of people are overlooking him as a champ in the championship 4. But this kid's playing with house money, and he's so relaxed, and he's got nothing to lose to going in there, right? Everybody else, Denny Hamlin trying to win his first championship. William Byron was the regular season champion. I think he probably feels like he needs to win the championship. Kyle Larson is Kyle Larson. And here's Chase Briscoe, already exceeded everybody's expectations in the championship for his first year at Joe Gibbs Racing, and with tons of confidence and momentum. There's something to be said for that. There's something to be said for coming in there with tons of confidence and no expectations from anyone else. So that's why I like him even a little better than William Byron. And then I just think Denny Hamlin's having the season of his life. That's why I like him a lot. But man, I would not bet 5 cents on any of them, if I'm being honest, because it's just so wide open.
Yeah, and Heather, to add to your point about Chase Briscoe, and maybe this is a feather in his cap. Obviously, this is a quote-unquote short track. Track position is going to be king throughout the entire race. And you think about the speed, particularly that 19 car has had starting up front in races. Obviously, it seems like he sits on the pole or on the front row or in the front several rows every single week. And so him being able to potentially qualify well and put himself in a position where he's ahead of his competition, once again, not necessarily having to win the race, but to just place ahead of his opponents, that seems like a really good feather in his cap potentially to get the weekend started off right.
Yeah, I mean, he's been the qualifying king this year. It's a really good point that you make, and he's good at Phoenix. Like his win last year that got him into the playoffs was in the spring race at Phoenix. Like, he's very confident going into there. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a fun weekend. In the Cup Series specifically, I think that there's, if we're being honest, probably only 2 drivers in the Xfinity Series and 2 in the Truck Series that should win this. I mean, stranger things have happened, but I think the Cup Series is wide open.
Yeah, I have to ask before I kick it to Calvin really quickly, just to go back to Denny Hamlin. Obviously, you think about him and maybe Mark Martin as the greatest drivers of all time to never win a championship. If he can do it, though, Heather, and break out that patented cigar that he's talked about many times that Michael Jordan gave his dad, and be able to smoke it after winning the championship this weekend. Just talk about he probably is one of those top 10 drivers of all time. He is technically on the wins list, but how much more can he add to his legacy if he has that elusive title to go with it?
Well, it's huge because I think, he's got 60 wins. Mark Martin had significantly fewer career wins. Mark Martin was more successful through all the levels of NASCAR when you talk about the old ASA series and then the Xfinity series specifically to go along with his Cup Series career. But strictly in the Cup Series, Denny has had far more success than Mark Martin. In my mind, he is the greatest driver to not win a championship at this point, which I know probably anger a lot of people because people don't like Denny per se. But he is, he is numbers wise the greatest to not do it. But that's not a title you want. That's not an enviable title. So to be able to say, I'm one of the top 10 drivers, here's my championship, and I'm a certified first ballot Hall of Famer and all those kinds of things. Denny is asked like he didn't want that. He didn't need that. That 60 wins was more important. But I mean, deep down, he wants a championship, and it's right there for him this year. He's having, which is incredible at 44 years old. He's having maybe the best season of his career, and so I think that it would be really important for his legacy, which is already great, to be able to cap it off with the championship.
Yeah, Heather, you mentioned that he might not be popular. I saw on NASCAR social media today, though, he was in the top 5 for, I guess, the 5 remaining drivers for most popular driver. So I guess those boos and those haters are starting to vote for him a little bit.
It's great. I mean, what would be better that in the year in which Denny Hamlin is suing NASCAR, if he wins the championship and dethrones the 10-time most popular. It's not that long because Chase hasn't been in the league that long.
Feels like it though.
I know it feels like it. Most popular driver, right? It was just incredible. I think though that the lawsuit has opened some eyes to people's opinions, what you think about it, yes or no. But if you didn't like NASCAR, I think that he gained some fans that way. I also think that this podcast and people seeing and really getting to know Denny outside of this guy who drives a Toyota and talks a lot of trash, I think that that's helped his popularity. And plus, Dale Earnhardt Sr. was pretty darn popular, even though people didn't like him. Popularity and like don't necessarily go together.
Heather, shifting on over to ETSU football, they've won 2 of the last 3, and they had a close 42-38 loss to Chattanooga, kind of sandwiched in the middle of those. But for kind of compared to what we've said about them for the rest of the season, it seems like they've been playing better over the last couple of weeks. Is that off base or is that kind of on track?
I mean, I guess from a perspective of wins and losses, they're playing better. The bad news for them is that at this point in time, neither one of their Division I FBS Power 4 quarterbacks are healthy. Cade McNamara suffered a back injury and is done for the season in the game, this last game that they played. And then Jacoby Criswell, 3 games ago, was the VMI game, had a leg injury. There are ETSU's on a bye week this week, so there's a chance that Criswell could be back after the bye. What's really interesting about that is in both cases, and they won the VMI game and then the Wofford game, is that Jake McNamara came off the bench and they won both games, who is also an FBS quarterback, just not a Power 4 FBS quarterback transfer. So they came in with an embarrassment of wealth at the quarterback position, and now you're down to just one, which he's still a very good quarterback, but the injuries and because they've also had some significant injuries on the offensive line and kind of the inconsistent play on the defensive side of the ball have hurt them a lot. I think that it's a little bit of fool's gold to say they're playing better because the 2 games they won were against lesser than competition. They looked really good in the Chattanooga game until they didn't, and I still think despite them winning the Wofford game that is a huge issue that they have finishing games against talented teams. It's easy to finish against the teams that are the bottom half of the conference. So hopefully on this bye week, they can accomplish 2 things, which is get physically healthy, but also mentally healthy so that they can finish games because they still have a chance to finish, 7-5 on the season. And then that's a pretty good season for a first-year head coach. But the competition's going to be tougher than what they faced 2 out of the last 3 games.
Yeah, and, even if they just happen to not be healthy, down these final 4 games of the season, out of the last 4 games, on paper, Wofford, Samford, and the Citadel look like very winnable games. Those problems that they were having early in the season when we were mainly talking about how they couldn't get out of their own way, how can they kind of put that stuff behind them, even with the injury bug to, like you said, finish strong and potentially even finish 7-5?
I think maybe stop thinking about it and talking about it. It's one of the things that after the win on Saturday that Coach Healy talked about, which is that he thinks that maybe they've talked about it as a group and he's talked about it as a head coach maybe a little too much, and that they are thinking about it too much. This is a very talented football team, and they really should have a much better record than what they have at the moment. But I do think it's mental, which I think this off week could be very good for them, just to kind of get those mental demons out of their head, get to sit on the win that they had under some pretty trying circumstances, and the defense did hold at the end of that game, so that was good for them. But I don't know that there's anything like talent level wrong. I think it's mostly mental, so that's something they're just going to have to work through if they want to be successful.
Yeah, and in year one of Will Healy, I'm going to play comparison a little bit because I've kind of seen somewhat of a similar situation with Jeff Ferris over here at Austin Peay. Jeff Ferris was hired in December of 2023, had to kind of scramble to put a roster together. And last year's Austin Peay team went 4-8. And coming into this year, he had a full year of recruiting to get the guys that he wanted. And, Austin Peay's really taken off. They're 5-3 right now. They've got one of the better quarterbacks in the FCS in Chris Parson. Do you think that, I'm not saying that, talent is the issue here with ETSU, but, do you think that, going not to look too far ahead, but going into year two, that Will Healy can kind of do somewhat of the same thing and, kind of grow in year two as ETSU's head coach and maybe bulk up that roster a little bit?
Because I don't talent's the issue. I don't think talent's the issue. I mean, they are loaded with FBS transfers all up and down the roster. Guys with great physical skills. I don't know what the issue is, and talking to Coach Healy, I don't know that he knows what the issue is, but people around there know because he was at Austin Peay. Healy's is a heck of a recruiter. Like, he can get the talent. Where he's lacked, and I don't know if it's him or his assistant or whatever, but where he's lacked in the past has been in the X's and the O's. And I think that from a fan's perspective, there's been a lot of call to make changes at defensive coordinator, and that might happen in the offseason. I don't have any intel on that. I'm just saying that's a possibility, because I think that he is a very strong communicator. He's a very strong leader. He's a very strong recruiter. But I think to be successful, we'll need to round him good X's and O men. And I'm not sure that this staff is that. I'm not sure that it's not. I mean, they've had success at times against good football teams. They had Chattanooga dead to rights. Like, they had them beat and let it slip away. So I'm not necessarily saying that that's the answer, but if there was a change to be made, I would think it would be more in that direction rather than the talent, because I think the talent is there.
Heather, I have to put you on the spot before we let you go. Obviously, we kind of talked through the scenario of the Final Four on Sunday. If you had to pick right now, though, who's going to be the person lifting the trophy?
Denny Hamlin. He's been my pick all year. I'm not coming off of it.
Well, you're a smart lady. If that, I wouldn't bet against him. Definitely considering everything that's at stake for him and how he's been there before and hasn't got it done. I feel like he's definitely a motivated man going to Phoenix this weekend. Heather, we appreciate you stopping by a little earlier than normal on this Wednesday. We appreciate you giving your insight as always. We hope you have a great week. We talked about you before you came. Your Chiefs are slowly but surely getting hot. They got a big one this weekend, obviously, against Buffalo.
Yeah, I know, but the weapons. It's just so nice to have all the weapons healthy at once. Now, if we could just get the offensive line all healthy at once, maybe we can really see what the Chiefs got. But it's fun. It's a fun time to be a Chiefs fan. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like Patrick Mahomes is playing probably the best he's ever had, which is, kind of scary to think about. Obviously, MVP. So hopefully they keep it going for you. I think the rest of the National Football League is a little nervous about it, though.
Should be, but that's all right. That's all right. I'll tell you what, Buffalo's going to be tough, and I think that, we have the Colts. I think the Indianapolis is really good this year. We have the Colts coming up later on. I think the AFC is fun, and it's fun with different people, which I like. It gets this is going to sound a little conceited, but that's okay. It gets boring always beating Buffalo and Baltimore every year. I like seeing the Colts coming up and giving us someone new to knock around.
Absolutely, Heather. We appreciate you taking some time. Hope you have a good rest of the week.
See you guys.
Coming up on the show after this commercial break, Game 5 of the World Series tonight out in the City of Angels in Los Angeles. We'll break down the pitching matchup and some storylines going to the matchup. Coming up after the break on Main Street Sports with us.
Columbia Power and Water Systems is dedicated to bringing our customers reliable, local service. Whether you're turning on a light switch, your faucet, or streaming on TV, our dedicated team members from here in Murray County work every day to keep you on. If you need us, call us 931-388-4833 or visit cpws.com. CPWS, local service, local support.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
This day in Braves history, October 29th, 2021. Braves right-hander Ian Anderson hurls 5 hitless innings, and the night shift bullpen does the rest as Atlanta takes a 2-1 series lead over the Houston Astros in the 2021 World Series. Austin Riley gave the Braves an early 1-0 lead in the third inning with an RBI double down the left field line, and Travis d'Arnaud added some insurance in the 8th inning with a solo home run off Kendall Graveman. Will Smith locked down the save in the 9th inning as Atlanta won its first World Series game at home since 1995, also the last year that it won the World Series, which would be captured a few days later in Houston. That is this day in Braves history, October 29th, 2021. I remember that game vividly. Calvin, it was a rainy night at Truist Park down the Batter in Atlanta, but the Braves showed out. And a team that showed out last night and is hoping to do it again tonight, that is the Toronto Blue Jays. And as they get ready to embark on Game 5 of the World Series, this time the 2025 edition against the Los Angeles Dodgers, tonight at 7 p.m. on Fox. Once again, the pitching matchup for tonight's pivotal matchup, it is Trey Savage, a rookie who was drafted last year, finds himself pitching in the Fall Classic this year, taking on obviously highly paid free agent signee Blake Snell, who's been great throughout most of the postseason for the Dodgers. Really good pitching matchup, Calvin. Both bullpens obviously have been taxed the last couple days, so both teams are going to hope that their starters can log some innings and make a couple trips through the order and try to keep this one close as we head towards the late innings.
Yeah, and I know the Blue Jays got to Blake Snell in Game 1, but Blake Snell's been really good throughout the whole season and especially the playoffs. And, you know, we talk about it every time we talk about the Dodgers. They've got 5 aces on their team that could be the number 1 pitcher on most of the teams in baseball. The Blue Jays took it to Shohei Ohtani last night. If they can do the same thing again, if they can do the same thing to Blake Snell twice tonight and go up 3-2, and get back to Toronto to potentially close it out in 6 or 7 games. I think that'll go a long way. Even though they've got 2 or 3, star-studded pitchers lined up behind Blake Snell, and we're still, I guess, waiting on an update on George Springer to see if he's going to be back any of this series. He's been
Yeah.
really good for them all year. Had a 30 homer year. Was really good in the playoffs along with Vladdy Jr. And the pitching matchups lean in the Dodgers' favor, but the Blue Jays have been able to get the bats going through the first 5 games and make it a competitive series.
Yes, please forgive me. I did not watch all or really any of last night's World Series game. Obviously, yesterday here in Wilson County was the press conference. For those of you from the area, the Mayor's Cup is this weekend, tomorrow night, actually, between Green Hill and Mount Juliet. So the weekly, or I guess the annual, rather, press conference was yesterday at the CP Between the Lakes. So I was there. And then, obviously, we had cross-country sectionals yesterday across the Mid-State. So I wrote something on that. So forgive me, I did not watch. But I watched the highlights this afternoon, Calvin, while I was eating some lunch. And I was kind of listening through the feed, and they were talking about how the Blue Jays' backs were against the wall yesterday. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani, who is one of the greatest talents we've ever seen in Major League Baseball history, was on the mound yesterday for the Dodgers. He pitched well. Didn't necessarily have the strikeout numbers that we think of with somebody of his velocity and stuff. But the Blue Jays were able to overcome that, and they're going to have to be able to overcome Blake Snell again, who once again has a really good fastball, has been using his changeup a bunch this postseason, obviously has a wicked breaking ball. But I would not, you kind of mentioned kind of in your conversations with Wade, you think that the Blue Jays are this massive underdog, but I think that they're an equally good team. They have one of the best records, obviously, in baseball and in the American League in particular. I think if they can find a way to win this game, Calvin, I really believe that they will be your World Series champion.
Yeah, if they can go up 3-2, obviously that would put all the pressure on the Dodgers. And, I know that the Dodgers have been really good over the last couple of years, but, the Dodgers haven't really seen pressure the last couple of years. They haven't played with their back against the wall. And, I'm not saying that that's going to, potentially deter them, because they're still a really good team. They've got 3 future Hall of Famers on their team, or 4 if you count Clayton Kershaw. And, even though Kershaw hasn't pitched, they've got 3 Hall of Famers in the lineup. And, they just always find a way to get it done. I'm not saying they're going to, win the whole thing, because it's been a more competitive series, and I think a lot of people thought it was going to be going in. But if the last 3 games, if it goes 7 games, if the last 3 games live up to the first 4, then we're probably going to be talking about this one as one of the better World Series of all time.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like when you're playing the Dodgers, Calvin, the margin for error is so small. I mean, when you think about the top of the lineup that they have, you think about Ohtani, you think about Betts, you think about Freeman, you think about Teoscar Hernandez being in there, you think about Will Smith hitting in the cleanup spot. It really, you think about guys like Tommy Edman. It feels like there really is no quote unquote easy out in their lineup. It feels like every one of those guys has the opportunity to hurt you and go deep. And that's what you kind of talk about, the Blue Jays missing George Springer at the top of their lineup. Just the postseason history that he had. I mean, going into game 3, I believe he had homered in 3 straight games in the postseason at Dodger Stadium, dating back to his time with the Astros, obviously kind of marred by that sign stealing scandal in 2017. But, it's just the dogs, quote unquote, DAWGS, that the Dodgers have in their lineup. It just seems like it is a battle inning for inning. So to beat this team 4 times in a 7-game series, it does feel like a Herculean effort.
Yeah, it always feels like no matter how many runs you score, you should have got more. And I mentioned this with Wade yesterday. After the last 2 World Series, Freddie Freeman is kind of entering that like mid-2000s level David Ortiz, like level of reveredness, if that's even a word. Like, when Freddie Freeman comes up to the plate in a high-pressure moment in the playoffs, kind of like Big Papi in those early 2000s years, you always feel like he's going to get it done. Whether it's, the walk-off in Game 4 or Game 3, or the walk-off grand slam last year. And even going back to, a couple years when the Braves made their World Series run, Freddie Freeman had, a lot of big hits to kind of keep the line moving and get the Braves to the World Series and win it. He's just turned into that guy that always comes up clutch. And, Wade and I talked about it yesterday. Shohei Ohtani had one of the best, not only postseason, but in performances of any game ever. And Freddie Freeman was the headliner. And, it feels like every other game we talk about Shohei Ohtani doing or having one of the best performances of all time. And Freddie Freeman is who we were talking about 24 hours later.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like, at least, maybe I'm a hater, Calvin. Maybe it's because I am a deep Braves fan at heart. If you cut me open, I literally bleed red, but I am a Braves fan to my core. And seeing the Dodgers of all teams have success makes me kind of sick. I know, but I texted Tommy Bryan, obviously former colleague of ours and good friend here for the Main Street Media family. I texted him yesterday after Freddie Freeman's walk-off home run in Game 3, and I said it kind of hit me yesterday that Freddie Freeman, throughout all the years that he spent with the Braves and obviously winning a World Series with them in 2021, his final season, that he might not be best remembered by future generations as a Brave, though. With these moments that he's having in the postseason, he might be remembered, and he might go into the Hall of Fame as a Dodger, which is very much hard to believe. But if they win another World Series championship, and they could win more in the future, by the way, with him under contract, and him have multiple rings in Dodger blue, with them being his hometown team, and with these moments that he's had, man, he might be a Dodger in the Hall of Fame and not a Brave, which kind of breaks my heart because he's gonna have his number retired and go up in the rafters in Atlanta for him.
Yeah, and those early Braves teams he was on when he first came up to the major leagues were bad. There were some bad Braves teams in there when him and Jason Hayward first came up together. But he was a World Series champion and an MVP with the Braves, and it's kind of wild because he did those things with the Braves, and he's had probably his two biggest moments of his career as a Dodger. And, I think it depends on what the rest of his career looks like in Los Angeles. He could potentially go in with no logo on the hat, but, just from, Freddie Freeman debuting with the Braves when I was like 8 or 9 years old to a couple years ago, Freddie Freeman was kind of that pillar in Atlanta. And then obviously made his way over to Los Angeles and has made his name out there. And, they're already talking about, I don't know if it's legitimate or not, but, building the statue already. And if he's not already a lock for the first ballot, he's rapidly approaching.
Yeah, absolutely. He is a pillar of the Braves family and community. I know he's a very controversial topic, particularly with Maurice Patton. I know he has his feelings about his free agency, and Mo is correct in how he feels. If Freddie Freeman wanted to be a Brave, he would be a Brave. I believe that as well. But with that being said, it is hard because I do consider him obviously one of the most important figures of Braves history, of recent memory at least. He was someone that we always thought was going to be a Brave forever, and he is a Brave forever in our hearts. I have a couple notes on two Braves, and particularly some good news and some well-deserved recognition for two individuals. I will give you that, though, in the grab bag as we have the next segment as we reach the top of the hour. This is Main Street Sports Today. Second hour coming up at 3:20, friend of the show, Michael Feldman will be joining us to talk a little college football. But coming up next, it is the grab bag. So be ready to stay tuned for that. And that is coming up after this commercial break.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Is your internet slowing you down? It's time for an upgrade. Whether you're at home, working from your home office, or at your business, it's time to unleash the speed you need with speeds up to 1 gig at CPWS for as low as $70 a month. Give us a call, 931-375-7777. Local service, local support, CPWS.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Second hour on a Wednesday. Welcome back into Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm David Wilson. That is my buddy Calvin White. It's time to it's time to jump into the latest edition of the Grab Bags. We talk some news and notes across the world, of sports. And Mark, forgive me really quickly. I'm not going to start with our NFL topic to kick things off. I'm going to continue continue our MLB chatter segment really quickly and mention this note really quickly. Earlier this afternoon, it was announced with the MLB Players Association Player Choice Awards that two Braves, Ronald Acuna Jr. and Drake Baldwin, were named Comeback Player of the Year. Obviously, that is Ronald Acuna coming off his torn ACL in 2024. And Drake Baldwin was named Most Outstanding Rookie over the Chicago Cubs' Cade Horton. Hopefully, that will carry over into the press for Rookie of the Year voting that will be announced here, obviously after the conclusion of the World Series and in the coming weeks. If Drake Baldwin gets named Rookie of the Year, the Braves get an extra draft pick in next year's summer draft, which will be huge for their organization. But going back to Ronald, obviously coming off the ACL, limited games this year, but still hit 20 home runs, hit 291 with his batting average. And obviously Drake, the Rake, had a great rookie season, kind of got thrust into duty right away with Sean Murphy suffering the fractured rib on a hit by pitch in spring training. Drake stayed with the team for all 162 games and provided a lot of good moments for this club. And obviously he is someone that they view a key part of their future. So two Braves that are held dear to Braves country get rewarded by their peers, which I would have to admit, Calvin, is probably more rewarding when your peers vote you for these awards and show you that you are deserving of such.
Yeah, they both had really good years. Ronald especially, kind of considering what he was dealing with coming off the knee injury from last year. And Drake Baldwin, almost had 20 homers and 80 RBIs as, a platoon catcher. As not the primary catcher. And, like you said, hopefully that will carry over into a 2025 Rookie of the Year award for Drake Baldwin. That would be, I guess, the second Rookie of the Year award for a Brave in the last 6 years. Was Ronald?
Think about Michael Harris.
Michael was Rookie of the Year?
I believe he won it over Spencer Strider.
I thought Spencer Strider won that Rookie of the Year.
One of them won it, so that
Either
would be
way,
two.
one of them won it. So that's 3 Rookie of the Year awards for the Braves over the last 5 or 6 years when Ronald won his in 2018, I believe. Because Pete Alonso was 2019, I think.
You're making me do some fact checking, so keep talking.
Yeah. Because I remember Ronald won the Rookie of the Year over Juan Soto. And then Pete Alonso won it in, I believe, 2019.
Okay, so your Rookie of the Year award winners. Michael Harris won it in 2022. So there you go. And then, yes, Ronald won it in 2018. So obviously Paul Skeens, won it last year for Pittsburgh, Corbin Carroll in 2023, and obviously Michael Harris the second in 22 over Spencer Strider. So this would make it a trend. And, the Braves do a really good job, over the last couple of years. I know we're kind of getting into the weeds here. We'll get back on track with the grab bag. Their farm system has not been rated by Major League Baseball or Baseball America or ESPN, whatever outlet you would say, as a top organization in some time, since they kind of got into this run with division titles and making the playoffs. But they're able to develop players really quickly and churn them out. You think about Michael Harris, you think about Drake Baldwin, Spencer Strider. These guys weren't necessarily high round draft picks. None of them were first round draft picks. They were being able to hit on that talent and really groom them. As you said, you think about Ronald. Ronald only signed for $100,000 coming out of Latin America. So credit to the Braves for developing their talent and getting them to the big leagues as quickly as possible. Although it is the grab bag segment, so we will jump into the grab bag really quickly before we talk with Michael Felder of LEARFIELD Sports with some college football. We'll start things off in the NFL. Calvin, this is something that's happened to me at the high school level. Back in the day, a good pasture not winning. Our jerseys got taken, so we were only allowed to wear 1 or 2 jerseys. A road, a home. We got our accessories taken away. Well, the Baltimore Ravens have done that as well, and this was particularly made by quarterback Lamar Jackson, who is hoping to work his way back from injury and play tomorrow night and Thursday night football. The Ravens snapped a 4-game losing streak last Sunday up in Maryland with a 30-10 over the Northsiders of Chicago. What made the difference, though, Lamar Jackson took away from their locker room the basketball hoop, the ping pong table, and all video game consoles. So he made them dwell on all the losing that they've been doing, not only in his absence, but in the games that they've kind of given away with him on the field. Lord knows we remember that Sunday in Buffalo where the Ravens were just absolutely dog walking Bills and let them back in the matchup. So taking away the accessories and all the fun out of the locker room. Hopefully that'll get the Baltimore Ravens on the right track.
Yeah, I'm just never convinced with these type of things that those things actually work. Like, I don't think you have to convince a grown man in the NFL to practice and try to win the game. Also, does Lamar Jackson know that, if you take a top 3 quarterback in the NFL off any team, they're not going to be good or as good?
They've been really bad. They've been really bad.
He's been hurt for half the year. Derrick Henry kind of cost him twice in the first couple of weeks of the season. And, when Lamar Jackson finally comes back fully healthy, I think a lot of people would still, bet on the Ravens. They would have to go on an absolute tear to get into the postseason, considering what the Chiefs and the Bills are doing right now.
I don't know about that, Calvin. You think about how bad the NFC North has been. Obviously, nobody wants to run away with that division. Think about it. First of all, how bad Cleveland is. They're a dumpster fire in itself. Myles Garrett had 5 sacks last week, and he was still pissed on the sidelines after what they got their butt kicked by New England. Cincinnati is not very good. Obviously, they're without Joe Burrow. They lost to the Jets and gave them their first win of the season. You think about Pittsburgh. They got beat up by Green Bay in the second half on Sunday Night Football. I don't know who the best team in this division, so I wouldn't write off the Ravens just yet.
Well, with Lamar Jackson, it's Baltimore. So when he comes back fully healthy, unless Aaron Rodgers looks like prime Aaron Rodgers and can elevate a mediocre Steelers team to compete with the Ravens for that division title, Baltimore might sneak into the playoffs, and then by the time they finally get in a groove, they might make a run. that they might make the run that we've been waiting on them to make the last couple of years. The Chiefs and the Bills have just always gotten in their way.
Last point on this, and I brought this point up several times on the show, I believe, with you as well as Mo Patton. You know, it's very publicized, at least now after the NFL draft, that the Ravens had interest in drafting Shedeur Sanders with one of their mid-round picks. They asked Shedeur's camp. He said, no, I want to go to an opportunity where I can start and where I can play. He ends up getting drafted by the Browns, who seem to have no interest whatsoever in putting him on the field. Man, just think about the opportunity that he would have had with Derrick Henry, with Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews. If he would have just accepted the backup role with Baltimore, not for saying obviously that Lamar gets hurt, but he would have definitely played over Cooper Rush and Tyler Snoop Huntley this weekend for the Ravens. He got an opportunity to start and show what he could do in this league. Definitely feels like a missed opportunity by Dion in Shedeur's kind of advisory council, inner circle, whatever you want to say, on not getting him to Baltimore. So that is my soliloquy on that matter once again. Something that came up in the news last week, which was big around the world of sports, Calvin, obviously it was Terry Rozier of the NBA in his gambling issue to say that is going to have him suspended from basketball. Some news and reporting, though, coming. FBI Director Kash Patel, that was reported on ESPN. In the same year that all that happened, and going back to look at the video, Calvin, some of those games and the moves and the things he were doing, there is no way he wasn't gambling, to say the least. In that same year, he was alleged to have manipulated his performance in the game, obviously for gambling schemes. He was facing $8 million in tax lien from the IRS, according to county clerks obtained by ESPN. The IRS filed an $8.2 million federal income tax lien in Broward County, Florida, where he had a residence in November 2023. The lien had been filed. Past notices were sent to the taxpayer, according to Florida State Attorney. So obviously, just this kind of gets in the weeds, and I just kind of threw this note in, Calvin, because all this news happened last week. But can you just imagine everything that's going on with Terry Rozier and just the gambling, and how over the last couple of weeks, in college sports, they were going to allow betting on sports to be legal by players, and all this is happening with it.
Yeah, and Wade and I talked about this last week when it first broke, kind of around the same time that this stuff with Terry Rozier was going on, and then Chauncey Billups got busted in a illegal gambling ring. Like, these dudes are already making millions of dollars, and now they've got to go and do illegal stuff to try and get more money than what they already have. Now, I know the videos you're talking about. Terry Rozier was absolutely, sandbagging out there. He was definitely trying to, hit the unders on those numbers to get whoever put those wagers on him some money. He was out there just throwing it to the other team on purpose and shooting it over the backboard. But, I think it came out yesterday or the day before that him and Chauncey Billups were not going to be paid while they were on leave from the NBA, which makes sense. And, what's kind of unfortunate about it is we're like 4 games into the season, and, Victor Wembanyama's averaging like 80 points and 40 rebounds a game, and Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier gambling is the story of the NBA so far.
Yeah, I love my boy Wemby. I sent a message talking some smack to Wade Neely, West Grizzlies fan, in our group chat earlier today. My Spurs are 4-0, and they will face the Miami Heat tomorrow down in the great state of Texas. Staying in the NBA really quickly, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Obviously, here's a name that was circling the rumor mill this offseason throughout the summer. Would he want to get traded after Milwaukee after their early exit last year in the Eastern Conference playoffs? Obviously, at least as a Spurs fan, I was hoping that he would come and pair with Wemby and De'Aaron Fox and Stephen Castle, and maybe Dylan Harper. A lot of people wanted to see him, though, in the orange in blue playing for the New York Knicks at the Mecca. Kind of silenced those rumors yesterday. Obviously, he had put up a heck of a performance in the 121-11 win for the Bucks over the Knicks last night. 37 points for Giannis, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. He was kind of asked last night, Calvin, after the game, about the rumors of going to play for New York and being in New York. He said, "Who said that? I don't read that. I don't remember that. Right now, I'm here representing my team. That's it. We beat the Knicks. The trade rumor doesn't really matter. What matters right now is we have a game in 2 days against Golden State. Try to stay locked in and get 2 in a row. I didn't read that article. I try to stay away from all that rumors, speculation, and trades and all this. It doesn't concern me one bit." Obviously, he's still one of the most prolific and dynamic players in the NBA. The size and the length that he has. Saw a video yesterday. He definitely walked, but he took like 8 steps from the from half court rather to the basket. So Giannis still a great player, and seems like he wants to be a Milwaukee Buck right now.
Yeah, I feel like his name's been, at least circulating the trade block for the last couple of years, and so far he's kind of backed up what he says about wanting to stay a Buck, and he's been one of the best players in the league over the last decade. He's probably one of the best players of all time when you look at the kind of the grand totality of his resume. But him and Victor Wembanyama together on the same team is like 15 feet of just arms. Like there would be no shots would be scored at the rim. You're gonna have to shoot it from just inside half court, especially when De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle are healthy. Those dudes are just some animals on defense, and good luck getting that thing inside the 3-point line with those two. But
there would be no offensive rebounds for the other team whatsoever.
There would be no rebounds for anybody other than those two. But
yeah, absolutely.
But Giannis I think it's pretty safe to say at this point he's the best Buck ever. He was there longer than Kareem was. I think he passed Kareem last year for the all-time Bucks scoring title. If he stays his whole career as a Buck, we don't get a lot of superstars staying, in one spot for their whole career. And, we've been lucky so far that we've got that with Giannis and the Bucks, and he turned the Bucks into, I wouldn't say a perennial contender, but, they're at least a playoff team most of the time when he's healthy and in the lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're obviously champions over the past couple of years when they defeated Phoenix in the NBA Finals several years ago. Really quickly, in the world of the NHL, last night at Bridgestone Arena, the Nashville Predators fell to the Tampa Bay Lightning 5-2. Tampa Bay scored 3 goals in the third period to hand the Predators their second straight loss. The Predators will head to the city of brotherly love tomorrow night, 6:00 puck drop in Philadelphia, where they take on the Flyers, who are 5-3-1 on their season. Predators will return home on November 1st, which is Saturday, to take on the Calgary Flames. So just a 1-game pit stop on the road for the Preds. Really quickly in MLB, Calvin just dropped this note in the chat. The starting lineup for the Dodgers is out tonight for Game 5 of the World Series. And as Calvin mentioned, for the first time all season, center fielder or outfielder for the Dodgers, Andy Pages, is not in the starting lineup for the Dodgers. Their outfield is composed of, from right to left, Teoscar Hernandez, Kike Hernandez, and Alex Call. Obviously, they're going up against Trey Savage. Ohtani, Smith, Betts, and Freeman are your top 4 in that lineup. Coming up after this commercial break, friend of the show, Michael Feldman of Learfield Sports, is going to join us to talk some college football. It's obviously been a hectic week across the landscape of college football. Brian Kelly gets the can last weekend at LSU. Obviously, there have been several openings across the SEC and the Big Ten that are high profile, to say the least. We'll get his thoughts on that. We'll also get his thoughts on a really good slate of games this upcoming Saturday in college football. We'll talk to him coming up next here on Main Street Sports Today, so stick with us.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Welcome back in. It is Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Day, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm David Wilson. That is Calvin White. Joining us now, friend of the show and college football insider / analyst, Michael FELDER of LEARFIELD Sports, to break down what has been a wild and not only weekend but year of college football across the country overall. Michael, we appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Hey, it's great to be with you guys. I hope everything sounds good, and I'm ready to rock and roll. Where do you guys want to go?
You sound great. Sounding good through my headphones. I want to start off in the great state of Louisiana, down in Baton Rouge. Last Saturday night, Texas A&M goes into Death Valley with Marcel Reed, former Nashville boy, Montgomery Bell Academy alum. Marcel Reed, Heisman Trophy maybe candidate now and favorite, goes down there and hands LSU a butt whooping that gets Brian Kelly the can one day later. Obviously, Michael, this seemed like a marriage from the get-go. As the resident Notre Dame fan of the show, that didn't really make a lot of sense. Kind of had to fake an accent at a basketball game to try to appeal to Louisiana State fans and obviously the state overall. Just kind of give me your first initial thoughts when you saw the news that Brian Kelly got the axe, and just where maybe LSU goes next, looking for its next head coach.
I'm going to take you through it because I want you guys to walk through this with me. My daughter is a swimmer, okay? So on Sunday, we had a swim meet. I work at those swim meets. Then I make dinner, and then I said, you know what? I'm gonna take my behind to bed. I'm going to bed early. So I go to bed. I went to bed around like 8:15. And then I wake up, I make sure my daughter's ready. I take her to school. I do drop off at the school, stop at the grocery store, come home. I haven't checked my phone like at all. So then I open up my phone and I'm like, oh, the story that I filed where I had all my thoughts about what was going to happen with Brian Kelly, they already happened. Everything I wrote in there already happened. I was like, they don't trust him. They don't believe in him. They don't like him. They want this guy out. So I had to put an edit into the story that I wrote. This story was, but you guys got to see, it's like going backwards to go forwards, right? Where I already knew this was going to happen, and they're going into a bye week going into this Bama game. So I knew he was going to get fired. I didn't realize it was going to happen right after I went to bed. I was trying to listen. You want to hear? I was trying to watch The Fall Guy. So it was wild. I think that you can't be a phony. And he felt like a phony from the get-go. You mentioned the fake accent, right? And the trying to do cool moves on the recruit videos. he felt like a phony. And then listen, if you don't deliver, you don't deliver in terms of wins. There's nothing. What are you going to do? Like, you can't. That's not a guy you can keep on your program. As much as we can hate on Ed Orgeron, at least he was sincere. He wasn't that good of a coach, but at least all of his efforts were sincere, and that was his dream job. For Brian Kelly, he thought this was going to be a job to get to another job, and there was no other job. And I don't know who's going to call him. As far as the new coaching candidates or guys that they should call, obviously Lane Kiffin is high on everybody's list. If I'm Lane Kiffin, I'm kind of happy where I'm at, man. I'm chilling. I'm chilling like a villain on penicillin. Like I'm out there like maxing and relaxing all cool, shooting some free throws outside of the school. At Ole Miss, because Ole Miss, if he keeps reaching heights that Ole Miss doesn't consistently reach, why not just stay there? Like it's like if you live on the beach and then someone's like, why don't you come? Hey, I got some more money for you, but come to Manhattan. You're like, I don't know, man. That's a lot.
Yeah, Michael, not to belabor the point on Brian Kelly, but, the 34-14 record, not terrible on the outside looking in, but didn't win the games that he needed and mattered most. Obviously, no college football playoff appearances. Maybe, obviously an outsider. This is a guy from Massachusetts trying to blend in, obviously in the Deep South. But I think more importantly, and I just want to get your opinion on this, he left Notre Dame, a place where he kind of felt like he had reached that cap to go win national championships, obviously at LSU. And you think about Notre Dame with Marcus Freeman, his former assistant, making it to the national championship last year, kind of being in the mix once again this year. And you think the last 2 weeks, Mike Elko and Clark Lee, both his former assistants that beat him in the last 2 weeks. It feels like it was kind of that perfect storm for Kelly to get the boot going into the bye week with Bama on the horizon.
Yeah, I mentioned the bye week before. I think it was expert timing, and the big thing for me was there are two things. The two biggest things: watching I can't remember his name, the 5-star recruit walk off the field, and fans being like, please stick with us, please stick with us. And then also, you mentioned Elko, you mentioned Lee, you mentioned Freeman, and the way that they have pushed hard. Who you didn't mention is Moffitt, who he cast out of that building. That guy's been there for 2 decades. Tony Moffitt, S&C coach, strength and conditioning. And he cast him out of that building. And the biggest thing for me is you have to build an identity and you have to build a culture. And I don't think that anyone bought into his culture, because that culture, in terms of Brian Kelly, it felt phony. I think Elko has created a culture at A&M that feels real. I think Freeman has created a culture at Notre Dame that feels real. And that's Lee at Vanderbilt has created a culture that feels real. And if you can't create a real culture, and if your staff, your team, the fans, if they don't buy into that culture, Dabo's built a culture that feels real. They don't always win, but you built something that feels real. Lee has built something that feels real. Freeman's built something that feels real. Brian Kelly never built something that felt real.
Calvin, you're muted. Want to try again? Okay, he opted out. I'll hit you with another one, Michael, really quickly as Calvin hops back in really quickly. Obviously, we've had a lot of parity in college football. Obviously, James Franklin gets the boot at Penn State, Billy Napier at Florida. Those 3 jobs particularly feel like 1, 2, and 3 right now on the open jobs. Obviously, Sam Pittman leaves Arkansas as well. How would you personally rank those in order of appeal if you were a coach looking to go on the move and take over a new program? And what are maybe some pros and cons that come with them?
So here's the thing. You know what? You're not going to do this to me. I'm going to do it to you.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's do it. So what are you looking for? What are you looking for in a job? Because to me, the jobs that I'm looking at, LSU, I love the locality and blending into the community. I think that, for me personally, that's a job where I don't ever have to really leave. I can stay there and do my thing. Florida has a different thing. Florida is a job where you have to win by 30 almost every single game. And then what was the other one? Penn State. Penn State, I don't want that job at all.
Hmm.
0%. Unless I'm going to die there. I don't want that job at all. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think for me, it's hard. It's a balance, right? I think Penn State is the clear number 3 when compared to Florida, excuse me, and LSU.
I know
think
Florida
I
State's
guess
going to come open too, probably, huh?
yeah, probably. I didn't mean to misspeak, but yeah, they're probably coming open too. I would say that if there is a pro that comes with Penn State, I believe it is an easier path to the college football playoff than it is at LSU or Florida. Maybe. Obviously, you're going to have to go up against Ohio State potentially in a Big Ten championship. When it comes to Florida and LSU, I think I've heard, and just bar talk I've had with people side either way. I guess the pro that comes with Florida is you don't have to leave your state or go very far to recruit. There are all Americans in the high schools around you that you could recruit and bring them to the swamp. Like Urban Meyer said, he didn't have to go very far to recruit when Florida was Florida in its heyday. But for me personally, I just think LSU is a different beast. I would put them number 1 with not only the recruiting, the kind of the swagger that comes with LSU. I mean, for me, I'm a young guy. I think about that 2019 LSU team with Jamar Chase, with Justin Jefferson, with Joe Burrow. Like they just had a swag that was off the charts. So for me, I think I'll put LSU 1, Florida 2, and Penn State 3.
I dig it. I can get on board with that. I'm thinking about myself. I'm a guy. I was born in North Carolina, raised in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
If I got to get a job and I have to move my family somewhere, I am moving them to Baton Rouge. That's a lifestyle that I can get with. And I'm not just talking about recruiting, and I'm not just talking about can we win. I trust my skills, right? If I'm a coach that they're talking to, I know my skills work. They'll work at any one of these 3 schools that we're talking about, right? LSU, Florida, and Penn State. My skills will work there. But where am I going to be happy? Where am I going to enjoy myself? Where am I going to not want to leave? Where am I not gonna, and we said this earlier, where am I not gonna look like a phony? And I think the one place I'd look like a phony is Penn State. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but I lived in Chicago for 4 years. I hated every single day of it. And I did feel like a phony the whole entire time. So Gainesville is 2 because they want you to win by 30 every game. Because thank you, Steve Spurrier. Did a great job of building that up into our entire fan base of we should always win and fun and gun. But at LSU, I think I would I've eaten gator before. That's not a problem for me. You know, I love having slow cooked meat. I'm good with that. So I go LSU 1, Florida 2, and then I don't want have you ever been to Penn State?
I don't plan to go to State College anytime soon.
Dude, I've never been, and I'm so glad they took me off the show. We had a show there when I was living in Chicago. Again, a place I did not like, but we had a show there, and they had to land at this place and then get a bus to go here, and then it was so hard to get to, which speaks to Florida and Louisiana or LSU. It speaks to the access to players. And you got and I can tell you this, you got a bunch of swamp monsters in Louisiana that people don't even know about. And those guys just bubble up because everybody ain't sending them down into the bayou to go watch that high school football.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we got you, buddy. Go ahead.
Cool. Yeah. Michael, this might be along kind of the same lines as what David asked you while I had to step out just from the way you were answering. But I talked about this with Wade yesterday. When you look at the 2 previous LSU coaches before Brian Kelly, Les Miles and Ed Orgeron, both won national championships, both eventually got fired. And, like David said earlier, Brian Kelly's record at LSU wasn't terrible. It just wasn't up to the standard that they hold themselves to. Is the pressure at that job too high to potentially deter some coaching candidates?
No, I think the standard is the standard. Shout out to Fran Brown at Syracuse. But the reality for me is both of those guys, I don't think Les Miles or Ed Orgeron were good coaches. They're really good recruiters. They're really good at amassing talent. And we saw Les do that. And then we got to see Ed Orgeron do that, and they amass talent, and they put people around them that could direct that talent, and they were able to go out there and get those wins. I think the issue is how you fit into the system, not the system, how you fit into the community. And Les Miles fit in, and obviously Ed Orgeron, nobody fit in more than that was his dream job. Nobody fit in better than him. So I think that's what it is. And Brian Kelly he didn't fit. And he didn't fit with and I'm going to use this word, and I don't use it lightly, but he felt like a phony, right? He felt like a phony. And players can detect that. And the way you extract the most out of your players is that they know you're in for a penny and in for a pound. And it didn't feel like he was that.
And I want to talk about Vanderbilt before we get you out of here.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt's been, I think, easily the darling of college football this year. They've got, a road trip to Texas this week. At this point right now, before they play Texas, do you think Vanderbilt is on the inside looking out in terms of the college football playoff? And do you think they need a win at Texas to kind of further that resume?
I think the win at Texas cements it. I don't think they're on the inside looking out by any means. I think that a win cements it. And this team, like, the reality for them is not like hope. And I guess that's the part that I am finding frustrating. We are games, so that's, what is that? 3. Hang on. I'm not good at math, dude. What do they have? 4 games left? So
they got Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn, and Texas left.
Yeah, this is how bad I am at math that I have to use like one of these guys.
We're all good.
Yeah, so we're at 8 over 12. So they're 2/3 of the way through the season. And 2/3 of the way through the season, there are a handful of one-loss teams. I think a win over Texas cements it. And also, is Texas good? See how I do this, where I just flip it back on you?
They don't look good.
No. And I feel bad because I thought Arch was going to be him for real, and he was not, or he is not. But,
they looked good last week, but they had to be down 17 in the fourth quarter to do it.
Yeah, but I love Diego. I think he should be in New York City. So far, through what we've seen, he should be in New York City. What is it? Richardson right there on the outside. And I love what they do offensively with this idea that they use this wing T, modified wing T, where Diego, when he gets the snap, holds it up, turns around, hands it back, reverse out, all that stuff. It's beautiful. It's great football. And what I'm noticing is it's confusing defenses because these kids, and I never even thought about this, speaking of being old, I'm used to seeing this. The coaches are used to seeing this. But the players have never seen offense that looks like this. So they're completely confused. And watching the coaches be like, hey, when he reverses out, it's coming back to you. Like, well, you got to do what you're supposed to do. What are we doing? And the players are like, I don't know what are you talking about, coach? And it's going to be interesting to see if it might catch up to them down the line. But at the end of the day, what they're doing really works. It's efficient and it's good football. I don't know. I wouldn't even call them a dark horse. What I would call them, I'd say that this is a team that they've got a great opportunity to go out and truly, like, Auburn. I mean, they got their own
bad.
Problems.
They're bad.
they got their own problems. But a win this weekend against Texas, you beat Auburn, you beat Kentucky. Kentucky's not good. And now we're looking at what's the worst case scenario in my mind is we're looking at a 10-2 team. 10-2, Vandy, they got an opportunity. They certainly, in my mind, 10-2 Vandy with wins over LSU. Well, LSU now they look weird, but Mizzou, like you got to be in the discussion based upon who else is going to be there. So yeah,
Michael-
I'm putting him into discussion.
Yeah, Michael Felder joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Michael, I wanted to ask you this question, and you kind of hinted on it there. You thought that Diego Pavia definitely is in the Heisman race and should be in New York. He kind of got some flack for that by some national media after his performance against Mizzou, even though he said that he definitely thinks he deserves to be in it. Kind of give me some guys, though, that you think should be standing there alongside with him. It seems like this year more than ever, it is wide open. I mean, going into the season, like you said, we kind of all thought that Arch was going to run away with it if Texas made the playoff. We thought maybe Carson Beck down in Miami was going to have his name in it as well. That necessarily hasn't materialized. Maybe talk about some guys other than Diego, who's had a great season for Vanderbilt, as you mentioned, that could maybe be with him in New York.
I'm going to start with my guy, Fernando Mendoza, Indiana. I love him. Like, truly, I think Carson Beck is going to have to try to build up steam after that Louisville loss, where he threw 4 interceptions. Not good. So I think Carson Beck, though, is still in the running. I think that if I had to vote right now, I'm giving it to Mendoza. But also, why not? If not now, then when? With respect to the up and down quarterback play that we've seen, why not a defensive guy, right? Like, why not? Like, why not a defensive guy? And there are a lot of guys that are playing really good football. You got the kid from Nevada who's playing really good football, but nobody watches him play, obviously. You've got Utah defensive end, John Henry. Like, why not any of these guys? If the quarterbacks aren't like they don't, if their juice isn't worth the squeeze, then why aren't we looking at somewhere else? And I think that's the most interesting thing to me is we're so hell bent on making this a quarterback award when they already have their own award. What if we just did an award for the most outstanding player? Because I'll say this, I think Harold Perkins Jr. is probably, for me, he's appointment viewing. I don't care if LSU wins or loses. I think he's appointment viewing. And he try to tell me that he's not one of the best players in college football, because he is.
Yeah, absolutely. He jumps off the tape, or I guess jumps off the TV screen, to say the least. Obviously, a very dynamic on the edge for LSU. Last thing for me, Michael, before we let you go, obviously the slate kind of lost a little bit of luster going into this weekend. Obviously, with Penn State traveling to the Shoe to take on Ohio State, that game looked great weeks ago. Prior to their kind of collapse with James Franklin. A lot of good games on the slate, though. Vanderbilt at Texas, as we mentioned. Georgia taking on Florida down in Jacksonville. Oklahoma at Tennessee, and Cincinnati taking on a really good Utah game for College Game Day. Just kind of that slate, kind of give me the game that you're most looking forward to and what you got your eye on.
Penn State, Ohio State, you already mentioned. You mentioned Vandy. Miami SMU is one, because Rhett Lashley, his name's going to be on a lot of people's short list for some of these big jobs, including LSU, especially as a guy that's worked in Texas where LSU recruits heavily from. I'm going to go ahead and go Duke Clemson. That's one that's under the radar, but I think a lot of folks should be paying attention to that. And hang on. I got one more. Oh, did we not? We didn't mention the cocktail party?
Yeah, Georgia and Florida, we did down in Jacksonville. Okay. We got you.
That's going to be. I don't know what that's going to look like. My wife's listening, so I have to say Michigan State, Minnesota. But.
Well, I guess there's a really quick question for you. Do you think Georgia's for real? You know, they've had these moments. They've been the comeback kings. We saw it against Ole Miss. We saw it against Tennessee. Do you feel like these slow starts are eventually going to do them in, though, with Kirby Smart?
I think Kirby's going back to the lab, and I don't think they're going to have any more slow starts. I think they're going to come out ready to fight. South Carolina Ole Miss is interesting because Lenore Sellers is truly a monster. If you let him loose, he's going to go. And Lane Kiffin is just what a savage coach Lane Kiffin is. Like I don't
think there's a better play caller in college football. He might be a top 5 play caller in just football and overall than Lane Kiffin.
Totally agree. And he is This dude wants to cut you. Some people want to hit you over the head with a club, but Lane Kiffin is like, I'm going to slice you. It's the difference between getting your head chopped off and death by 1,000 knives, and he's death by 1,000 knives type guy. So I love that. OU Tennessee is going to be interesting. Let's see which style prevails. And one that's not on everybody's radar, but I'm going to throw it out there. Well, you already mentioned Cincinnati, Utah. I'm going to go ahead and throw out Nebraska, USC at Nebraska, because I think I've never been a huge Lincoln Riley guy. I think he's a very good offensive coordinator. I do not think he's a very good head coach. We'll see what this looks like and now you go to the behind the scenes of Rule and the Penn State job, and there's so much drama to that. We'll see what it looks like.
And I'll say this, 2 things on that game before we let you loose. First of all, Lincoln Riley and his road woes at USC. Obviously, we saw them at Notre Dame several weeks ago. And obviously the travel, now granted, Nebraska is not that far from California, but just the travel.
Very far. It's very far. Are you kidding me? Hey, no. I'm looking it up right now. LA to Lincoln, Nebraska.
How far is the plane ride?
It's 1,500 miles.
Well, it's better than going to Rutgers, I guess. So that is
it's so far. It's so far.
Yeah, and then I'll say the second thing is Nebraska fans, man. I've been to Nebraska once, and when they get chanting "Go Big Red," it is definitely an atmosphere. So when they're bought in, obviously Nebraska back in the day, one of the giants of college football, trying to reawaken it. Obviously, as you mentioned, Matt Rule, maybe with looking towards that Penn State job. But look, with their travel, having to potentially go across country, there is no easy flight from LAX to anywhere for USC. Definitely in the Big Ten.
Yeah, they're they're playing at night. They're playing at night. It's going to be 35 degrees.
Yeah, them California boys might necessarily do so well in the cold in Nebraska.
That's all I'm just saying. That's all I'm saying.
I got you. No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, they're not going to. I'm just saying, it's a long flight to a place that is completely different from anything they're used to a temperature they're not used to. With a coach who doesn't respond well to it. I will say this. I don't think Lincoln Riley responds well to adversity.
I think you have a good point there.
There we go.
Say the least. So, Michael Felder, we appreciate you jumping in on Main Street Sports today. We appreciate you, and I hope you have a good rest of your weekend, buddy, okay?
Yeah, man. I'm going to have a good weekend. You guys enjoy yourselves as well.
Thank you. Coming up on the show as we enter our commercial break, it is our Wild and Wacky segment that is right around the corner, so stick with us here on Main Street Sports today.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the Pick Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
Final segment on a Wednesday. Welcome back again to Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm David Wilson. That is Calvin White. It's time for our favorite segment of the show. It's Wild and Wacky, where Calvin presents the wildest and wackiest stories from across the globe. We got about 10 minutes left in the show. Without further ado, I pass the baton over to one Calvin White.
Yeah, we didn't get to do this last week, so lots of
I believe
stuff
this
to
was on
choose
Wade and Mo last week, so they got the opportunity to fill in for us and do it.
Yeah, so I didn't get to do this last week, so there's plenty to choose from. But our first story, the headline reads Austrian surfer rides wave for 8 hours, 5 minutes, and 44 seconds. Says it broke the Guinness World Record. He's on one of these like man-made wave type things.
Yeah.
And so he was riding this thing for over 8 hours somehow.
I would get hungry. And I mean that seriously, like with the energy I'm exerting, I want to get tired, but I'm a big fella. I got to eat at some point too now. And I can swim, but if I fell back in that, I wonder how deep that water was, really. Just looking at that photo, I really wonder how deep that water was and how much, with the tiredness, quote unquote, and the exertion of energy that he had spent, I might be going to the Lord after that if I fell off the board.
Yeah, it doesn't look very deep, but like personally, I've never tried surfing, but it seems like
I haven't either. I mean, I feel like that's a California
difficult thing to do. So
I feel like that's a California thing. I feel like we don't do that a lot in Florida, if that makes sense. You might see it a time of time, but I feel like that is definitely a coast of California rather than coast of Florida. When I go to Panama City, I don't see a lot of people out there surfing like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the water doesn't look that deep, but I would imagine that obviously that was
That was probably a stupid point by me, but
well, I mean, if you fall off, I would assume you wouldn't want it to hurt, or at least, with that wave going, increase your risk of drowning potentially.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I don't know, like I've never been appealed, I'll say, to surfing or learning how to surf. So credit to this guy. 8 hours is a long time. A long time. I know that because we're in cross country season. So watching these runners run their races that are 5,000 meters in 19 minutes or 20 minutes feels like a long time. 8 hours is a long time to be on a surfboard. So they can keep that. Congrats to him, though.
Yeah. Mark, I'm going to skip around here. Our next wild and wacky story, we're going to go to a nearly 3,000-pound pumpkin. These two brothers over in the UK grew a 2,819-pound pumpkin. Says they've been growing these huge pumpkins for over 50 years, and this one broke the world record. It tipped the scale at 2,819 pounds and 4 ounces. These brothers are 64 years old, and they've been doing this ever since they were kids. And they said this is the biggest one they've ever grown. I don't even know how a pumpkin grows that big, and you're still able to harvest it.
They definitely stuck some needles in that thing and added some growth hormones to that to make it a little bigger. That is wild. It's fitting because it is spooky season. That is Halloween time for you to submit this. That is a very large pumpkin. Now, I will say this. Are you a fan of pumpkin pie?
I've never had pumpkin pie.
Never had pumpkin pie. Mark might slap you through the screen. I've been eating too much sweets lately. I got gifted a caramel cake for my birthday. I've been throwing that down. I can go for some pumpkin pie though. But that's very large. As Mark said in our chat, we got a Star Wars reference that might look like Jabba the Hutt. But that is a very enormously large pumpkin, to say the least. But I definitely think they stuck some things or they added some chemicals to that to make it grow that big. It didn't do that on its own. That's for dang sure.
No. And, we're going to get off the pumpkin, and we're gonna transition to what's probably the wackiest story we have this week.
Calvin, it needed a pallet to get it on there. Look how big that thing is. That is a pallet.
It did.
Pallet jack.
It did. They needed a forklift to get that thing off the ground. But Mark has pulled up Jabba the Hutt for people that don't know what he looks like. But our next wild and wacky story, we're going to go to Chunkosaurus Rex in Texas. It's this giant squirrel that won a fat squirrel competition in Texas. It says rotund rodents from across the state of Texas competed in Texas Parks and Wildlife's inaugural Fat Squirrel Week with a squirrel named Chunkosaurus Rex taking the top spot. It doesn't say how they monitor how big these squirrels get, but that looks like a pretty big squirrel, if that is the one in question.
Yeah, it definitely looks like he's had his fair share of nuts or whatever else per se that squirrels eat. Yeah, that's an interesting contest. You said this is in Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says they use social media to determine the winners, like whichever
Okay, I was about to
squirrel
say,
gets the most
I don't think. Okay, that makes sense. Do people have pet squirrels down there in Texas? I know that might be a silly question, but can you have a squirrel as a pet? Good luck catching the thing.
Yeah.
But I guess you could. I would need some context to describe this. The social media voting does make sense. If you let those things just sit on the table, they would definitely run away. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty big for sure. So chunky is a good word to describe it. I think you have room for one more if you got one.
Yeah. Let's see. Which one do we want to pick from?
That's up to you.
We can go to our old reliable friend David Rush, Mark. David Rush throws water balloons at YouTuber for Guinness World Record. Serial Guinness World Record breaker David Rush teamed up with another YouTuber to earn the title for the most hits of a person with water balloons in 3 minutes. So this guy just stood there throwing water balloons at him for 3 minutes. Now,
I must say, I'm not willingly getting wet, but I'll throw them.
Yeah, and I hope they were the good water balloons, because speaking from experience as a kid, if you got the bad water balloons, you would get hit with one and it wouldn't pop. It would just sting you on the arm, and then it would pop as soon as it hit the ground, and it kind of made you question what kind of water balloons you're buying. So hopefully they had the good ones and they were popping on impact instead of leaving welts all over his body.
Yeah, I was more of a water gun fight instead of a water balloon fight kind of guy. I think that was what got into us, at least at the parties that I was at growing up. But your friend, as you mentioned, David Rush, he's over reliable when we want to go to Wild and Wacky. It feels like every world record in the Guinness World Book, he's going to have his name associated, or try to have his name associated with in some form or fashion. Appreciate you, Calvin. Obviously, that is a very abbreviated Wild and Wacky segment here on Main Street Sports Today, as we went a little along with our friend Michael Felder as we talked about everything that it was happening in the world of college football. Michael's always a great guest. Obviously, we look forward to having him on in the near future, especially as we inch closer, obviously, to the 12-team playoff getting underway in December and January. Obviously, we're winding down, as we mentioned, with just 4 games left for most programs across the country on their college football schedule. Looking forward to a great slate this weekend as well. Calvin's done for the week. He has got some high school football tomorrow. I believe he's headed down to East Nashville. He's going to go to Nobles across the street as well. Grab him a bite to eat for East Robertson and the Eagles duel for a region championship. And then on Friday, he said he's going to Henry County, where Kirkwood is playing there. They're also playing for a region title as well. I will be back tomorrow with our friend Maurice Patton. We'll be breaking down Game 5 of the World Series out in the City of Angels tonight. That comes on at Fox at 7 o'clock. It'll also be our Throwback Thursday segment, so looking forward to that. Coach's Corner as well. Hope you guys have a good rest of your Wednesday and have a good rest of the week.